Welcome to Sip Tea with me. I'm your host, Lisa Schoenthal. Think of me as that fun and inspirational auntie or sister you always wish you'd had. This is a space where we hang out, brew up meaningful conversations about health, wealth, relationships, and travel, because life is too short not to live with purpose, passion, and abundance. If you're ready to chase your dreams, find your balance, and make a massive impact, you're at the right table. I'll be sharing real stories, life hacks, and epic wisdom to keep you mindful, energized, and connected. It's all about inspiring and empowering you. So grab your favorite cuppa as we spill the tea on how to create a life that's transformational, empowering, and authentically you, 100%. Let's drink to that and get started.
Hey fam, Happy New Year. It's so exciting, right? Leaving behind the old and stepping into the new. Today I'm recording this. It is the new moon, which is actually a very powerful time. The second new moon we've had in December, and it's a really powerful time for manifestations. And so this Sip Tea with Me is a huge manifestation for me. I have also been revamping my book, The Men We Meet. It will be its 10th anniversary. I cannot believe it. 10 years have already gone by. But I've been working on that, and then really quick, fast, with the intention of making that happen, turning it into a workbook and bringing it back to life and getting back to my coaching and mentoring and being a guide for other people, sort of stepping away from my flight attending as that comes to an end. I am just super excited about my book, and I was working on it, and all these people started coming into my life, because this is how the universe works when you get your energy going in a certain direction. So it's not really the topic of today, but it kind of is. And I just wanted to let you know where I've been at. So as I began to work on the book, all these people started coming into my life. I already had this friend that podcasts with me. She's been a coach, and she's been encouraging me to get this going. I met an AI specialist who is also helping me with some other parts of my business. And as I was sitting deciding what I wanted to do next, it was rewriting that book and bringing that back to life, but with more of a focus on you, the end user, to help transform and empower you to authenticity, which are my 3 things that I love. They spell tea, if you didn't catch that. And so what I really wanted to happen was I would be writing this book, and when all that energy started kicking up, more and more people were coming into my lives, and more and more opportunities, because that's what happens when we jump on the frequency that is of our higher self. And that's where we're going with this new year, is we're leaving whatever is not serving us behind. We're stepping into higher purposes. We're really owning our truths. The planetary alignments, I don't get tons into astrology, but I do love it. The planetary alignments are helping every single one of us to move forward, especially as a collective with collective energy. And we need to all use our own individual talents and gifts out in the world to make that happen. So with all of that said, again, I'm Lisa, I'm your host, and I'm a transformational guide and authenticity advocate. And I also feel like I'm just that girlfriend that you can talk to, that sister you maybe have or don't have, that fun auntie who's all about real talk, big dreams, and an even bigger heart for new beginnings. So in this episode, this New Year's Day episode of Sip Tea with Me, I'm sharing 3 powerful packed pearls of wisdom from my beloved grandmas. We'll laugh about Grandma Pansy's no-filter advice, my Grandma Marge's hilarious take on kindness, and admire my step-grandmother Gloria's quiet leadership and faith. Together, we're going to explore how to release what is no longer serving us, embrace more gratitude and purpose, and set the tone for an authentically awesome 2025. So pour yourself a cup of cozy, grab your notebook for the journal prompts, and let's dive into a heartfelt blend of inspiration, transformation, and unmistakable grandma magic that will be just the spark you need to kick off your most authentic year. It'll be just the spark you need to kick off your most authentic year. So we're going to start out with my Grandma Pansy. If you know me and you're listening, you know that my Grandma Pansy was one of the loves of my life. I consider her a soulmate. We have many soulmates in life, but I consider her one of my greatest soulmates, my wisest teachers, my closest advocates. And I have a very young mom, and we had the opportunity to spend lots of time with my grandmother. There were points in my life where we lived with her when I was young, but I also lived with her when I was in college, which was a really meaningful time. She was the type of person that everybody loved. She had a sweet personality. She was feisty. I don't want to say feisty because my other grandmother's really feisty. She was straightforward when she needed to be, and she was really sweet at other times, but almost everybody loved her. She came from a really super huge family. We had lots of cousins. She had lots of sisters, lots of old aunties. Sip Tea with Me was actually inspired by my Grandma Pansy. She used to boil a pot of tea and make sure that the tea pot was ready to go before we ever sat down and had any of our heart-to-hearts. So I remember sitting around a lot of, as a child, witnessing her and her sisters talking, and my mom and her friends, they were all sort of gathered around because we had such a huge family. And my grandmother really made this Grandma Pansy. She made the hugest impact on me. She taught me about nature. She taught me about love. She taught me about heartache. She was in no way a perfect person. She had lots of different challenges that happened in her world, but she always was the unconditional love. I never had to question ever if I was going to be loved. I could tell her anything, and she would just remind me that it was okay to just be me and to be wherever I was at in my journey. So that's my Grandma Pansy. I'm actually going to just jump right into it. I want to talk about, well, that's okay. So we talked about my Grandma Pansy, but I also have my Grandma Marge. So my Grandma Pansy was my mom's mom, and my Grandma Marge was my dad's mom. But my Grandma Marge is only 42 years older than me. She passed away last year. And so because of the age difference, and because my dad died when I was young and my mom remarried and we kind of just started a different life, I didn't see my Grandma Marge a lot. She was always around. I knew she was there. She always checked in with us, but I didn't really spend a lot of time with her. She was so young. So like I said, she was 42 years old when I was born, and she was not prepared to be a grandma. She was like still young and beautiful, and she was the feisty one. She was the wild thing. She was the bit of a rebel. She liked her independence for sure, and her freedom. I see a lot of myself in her, as well as my other grandmothers. But as she got older, and someday I'll tell the story of how I reconnected with her later in life, but because it's kind of a long story, but she did come back into my life. And when she did, I realized that she had early onset Alzheimer's. And at first it was not too bad. But as the years went by, of course, that terrible disease steals people from us, but it also gives us a lot of love, and it gives us a lot of patience and understanding and care. So I will share a tidbit from that grandmother who I absolutely adored, and I feel so blessed to have been able to spend that time with her. And then I also had a step grandmother, Gloria, who I just saw as my grandmother. She got us when I was 7 years old. So she was just another bonus grandma that we had. And she was completely different than the other two. She raised 5 children, and she was really deep into her faith. She was Catholic, and she was also a pillar in our community. She was a very strong leader. She had an unwavering commitment to service, and she was absolutely honored and recognized for all of those things. Very, very different. She wasn't really that warm, fuzzy grandma, but she had so much to offer me in ways that weren't so obvious at the time. So as we get into it, I'm going to talk about these 3 grandmas and give you some of their wisdoms. We're going to look back on 2024 and kind of take a look at our wins, our lessons learned, and any challenges. We're going to emphasize some gratitude so that we've got growth and the mindset of learning from every experience. And then, of course, we're going to move forward into 2025. We're going to frame this new year as an opportunity to gain wisdom in practical ways, to really step forward into our truths, to let go of approval of what other people think, of what other people are telling us to do, and really step into what it is that makes us feel super good and that lights us up. We'll have some journaling prompts, so you'll want to make sure that you've got some pens and paper. If you don't, you want to pause it and go grab some. We're going to have journal prompts and then some action items, because I think it's really important that this is a lesson I learned this last year, is that it's one thing to gather knowledge and wisdom. It's another thing to journal, which I'm a huge fan of my whole entire life. But if we don't take action, if we don't move forward, then we're not going anywhere. So we've got some action items to jumpstart your transformation. So we're going to get into it. If you need to fill your cup of tea again, go ahead and do that. All right. We're going to start off with Grandma Pansy, her wisdom number 1. This is something that I live by, and she used to say all the time. So she used to say to me this quote, "Shit or get off the pot." So obviously it sort of speaks for itself, and you probably have someone in your life that's maybe said something the same or similar. And she was always talking about this, meaning stop just lingering around. When you make a decision, make it. Even if it's the wrong decision, you can still go for it. Take action, like we were talking about. Don't let life pass you by. So she had so many instances of this in her life. One of the biggest times I saw this was, I didn't know her then because she was so young, but she got married when she was super, super young. She threw on a pair of motorcycle boots and she got on the back of a motorcycle and rode off and married this super handsome young man. She didn't stay married to him for very long in her life, but she really decided that she was in love and she was just going to go for it. She used to tell me the same thing when I would come to her and I would say, well, I'm not really sure what to do here. What do you think if I go to this college? What do you think if I date this guy? What do you think if I get married at this age? I was really young when I got married the first time too. And she would just say to me, just shit or get off the pot. Why are you wasting so much time with this? Make a decision, go for it. If it's wrong, just shift and take a different direction. So that said, I loved my grandma's bluntness. And what I was thinking about regarding journal prompts is, the first one is, where am I procrastinating and why? Where am I procrastinating and why? Ask yourself that. Number 2, if fear wasn't a factor, what bold move would I make? Oh my God, I love this. What bold would you make? What bold move would you make? If fear wasn't a factor, there really are, just a note, there really are only 2 emotions in life. There's love or there's fear. And we can pretty much take everything down to that. If we're angry, we're generally fearful about something. If we're happy, we're generally feeling love. It's very easy. It's hard to navigate all of the vast number of emotions that we can identify. But really, if you just narrow it down to one or the other, and then ask yourself, am I making this choice out of love or fear? It sort of makes life a lot easier. So that number 2 question in the journal prompt was, if fear wasn't a factor, what bold move would I make? Journal prompt number 3, what's one small but meaningful step I can take right now? Because really, most of the time we get super overwhelmed, right? We get totally, we start thinking, we get in our head instead of settling into our heart. And we think there's so many things, there's nowhere to start. Oh my God, if I had done that, which I did, I'm admitting it. I did that with this podcast for a really long time. I thought, how am I ever going to get started on that? I did the same thing with my book. When I wrote the book the first time, now I'm rewriting the book and adding a workbook. And I thought, oh my God, on my website, it needs to be updated, and on my social media and all of these things. But really, I just stepped back and I asked myself, what's the one next move that I need to make? What is my next move? And then once I made that move, the next move will come and the next move will come. And some of it isn't what we think it's going to be. Some of it isn't like our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on our check the box list. Some of it is, like I was saying earlier, is it begins to manifest itself and things take turns and people come into our lives to help us. And it's really exciting when we get in the flow that way because it makes everything easy and it makes everything really fun. So from this idea of shit or get off the pot, there are a couple of action items. I have a tiny little micro task, and it's just about identifying a lingering task or dream and then take one action toward it this week. So what is it that you're dreaming of, or what is it that you're wanting to accomplish? Maybe it's actually sitting down and looking back at the last year and really feeling into it, not really analyzing or judging, but just really feeling where it felt good so you can create more of that, and then letting go of what didn't. And then I think it's really important to have accountability buddies. And so I would encourage you to share your goal with someone. We'll check up on you and make sure that you're on track or that you are sort of taking those steps. I have accountability buddies in both of my endeavors right now. And I have to shout out to, like I said, my girlfriend Jen, who is instrumental in launching me in this podcast world, and my girlfriend Deborah, who is an AI expert, and she's been instrumental in showing me the ease of how to accomplish my business tasks using our friend AI as we move into the future. The future is moving so fast, guys. It's we have the opportunity in so many ways to use our creative talents and our special gifts, and we don't have to sit and stare at the wall and wonder anymore how we're going to use those things. We actually have opportunity to use this AI technology to help us move forward and to gain confidence and to feel empowered. So that's, maybe have Deborah on sometime to talk about that. But those accountability buddies are super important. I don't know what I would do without them. What they have turned into for me is I've had accountability buddies on lots of things. When I wrote with the book the first time, I had my beautiful friend Brew was my accountability buddy. I've had lots of those opportunities, but what I'm seeing now is it's really shifting from being an accountability buddy to being like an inspirational partner, I guess. I'm finding more and more that when I see my friends creating and I see what they're up to, it inspires me to create at the next level as well. So find somebody that helps you that way. All right. So because I love my Grandma Pansy so much, I've got a second wisdom from her. I even have a third one. So here we go. Grandma Pansy's wisdom number 2, let go of the hanger-oners. Yes, that's right. The hanger-oners. This was her term that she used for emphasizing walking away from toxic relationships or influences. She was a beautiful woman, and I'm not quite sure what was going on with why she chose the men she chose, but she had that first love of her life, and he didn't come home one night. Like really early on in their marriage, he didn't come home. He was out with the boys drinking or partying or doing something, and when he came home, she had all of his stuff out on the doorstep. She said she wasn't gonna put up with that kind of crap. So I thought, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You didn't even have any proof. Like he wasn't with another woman. He wasn't. And she actually had some regret around that. But later in life, she ended up marrying my grandfather, who was a sweetheart to me, but he was also an alcoholic and abusive in his relationship with my grandmother. Super hard topic, and we all know people and have people we love in our lives who've been important to us, who've been affected by this. But my grandmother, Pansy, she, at a time when people weren't really getting divorced, she said, you know what? I'm not going to live like this. I won't live in this abusive situation. And she took my mom and got out of it. I know that wasn't an easy thing to do for her or my mom, but she said that was the end for her. So she stepped out on her own. She was a successful business person. Everybody loved her, and she was in sales. She actually sold pre-need cemetery property. I'll talk about this again on another episode as well, because this is why I love graveyards so much. But that was her job. I spent a lot of time with her at it, and she was very successful at it. So she forged her own way. And then she got married again, and that was another messy situation, not abuse-wise, but kind of being taken advantage of financially. So anyway, that was her experience. She's like, let go of the hanger-oners. So she used to say this to me when I lived with her, especially in college. She would say to me, you don't need those people in your life. They seem like you're their friend, they're your friends, but they're not. They're just stealing your energy. They're wasting your time because they want what you've got energetically. So her advice to me was always let go of the hanger-oners. She also wanted me to stay home and spend some more time with her, I think, too, which was fine. So we've got some journal prompts for this one. The first journal prompt about the hanger-oners is who in my circle lifts me up? And who is it that weighs me down? Who in my circle lifts me up? And who weighs me down? It's one of my very favorite questions. And I ask myself it over and over and over again because we're constantly redesigning our lives. Number 2, what would I gain by releasing these toxic dynamics? And I mean, I say toxic, it's such a kind of a trend word, as well as trauma bonding these days, right? But maybe they're not all the way toxic. Maybe they're just really great old friends that you have that are going down a different path. Maybe they're not looking to create the way you are. So for me, I love my old friends. I mean, I have the best people in my life. I can't begin to express how thankful I am that I have children. I have friends that are completely from my childhood, like all the way up. But sometimes it's a balance of how we spend our time, right? And it's important to look at surrounding yourself with people who, we're going to talk about this later, but it's important to surround yourself with people who are on the same path as you are and to share your hopes and dreams with people who are creating the same thing or who have already created that so that they can help you find your way. All right. So number 2 was what would I gain by releasing these toxic dynamics? Number 3, what boundaries or conversations do I need to initiate? Okay, boundaries are a super hard thing. Again, we'll do another episode on this, but setting boundaries is really hard. I actually believe that this is one of the biggest things that we are all doing here on this planet right now is learning about boundaries or having conversations that we need to initiate. And a lot of times when I talk to people, when I'm doing coaching or guidance with people say they're afraid of conflict. They avoid conflict, which really just means that you're avoiding having a conversation. And so we really need to shift that idea of every time we talk, there's going to be a conflict. We need to shift that idea to I'm creating conversations that help open up the door for authenticity and truth and real relationships. Because if you open a conversation and the person you're talking to is not ready for that conversation or they're defensive or they're coming at you with anger, you might want to go back to number 2 and ask yourself again, what would I gain by releasing this relationship? Or maybe we can't always completely release relationships, especially if it's like family members or work situations, but we can limit our time and then focus on filling our time with people who really, again, light us up and lift us. So number 2 was, what would I gain by releasing those toxic dynamics? Number 3 was, what boundaries or conversations do I need to initiate? They might be hard. It might feel hard, but think about what the outcome might be. Action items. All right, we're going to do a little list of key people in your life and decide who deserves more or less of your energy. So this is just what I was talking about. We're not going to completely ditch everyone from our lives. I mean, some people, you know who needs to go, but some people need to stay. And some people need to be what I call like limited access friends. So people that you love it when you see them, but you don't see them all the time. Some people need a whole bunch of your time because they're so juicy and they're so amazing and they're so inspiring and they make you feel so great that you want to take on the world. So you need a little more time with those guys. So make that list of key people that you have in your life and then decide who deserves more or less of your energy. And then we are going to encourage seeking out new communities, meetups, mentors who align with your higher aspirations. Okay, this is also what I was talking about. So you have the people that you have in your life, but like me, maybe you're aspiring to something new. So when I aspired to create a podcast and I aspired to rewrite my book, I stepped out of my everyday circle and I started calling in people who were going to help me on this journey. journey. I love this book. I can't remember who the author is, but it's called Who, Not How. And it's who is going to come into my life to help me, not how am I going to do this. So I love this idea of seeking out new communities. So I have, like I said, I had brought in my podcasting friends. I brought in my book writing friends. And when that happened, then I found a new networking group called eWomen Networking. I'm super excited about that. I'm going to be going to more meetups. I am going to be running a book club. These people started to come into my life as I sought out new opportunities to align with my higher aspirations. I found new mentors. The same thing happened. I mean, all of this is around me, like podcasting and writing a book, but what's it about for you? There were times in my life when I got divorced and I was like, oh my God, now who are my friends? Like, where am I going to find my social time when our friends are all tied together? When I moved to a new town, I was like, what do I love to do? I'm going to try to play pickleball. I would love to play pickleball. And I found a new community in my pickleball sisters. Same thing with volleyball. I joined a meetup group ages ago and met the most incredible people in my meetup group just playing beach volleyball. So there's really great ways to just find new communities and find new people who bring out whatever it is in you that you want to expand. All right. So Grandma Pansy's wisdom number 3, stop jumping so much. Okay. What she meant by this was not jumping up and down. Sometimes she meant, why are you going to the gym all the time? Because she couldn't understand why we all exercise the way we do instead of just going in the garden and bending over and lifting things that way. But she also meant focus on not scattering my energy in too many directions. I love that. Do you feel like you have your energy going in all directions? Like when I was deciding to write the book, I also had my energy going towards my special events career, my flight attending career, my social life, my partner. I had a family. What else was I doing? Oh my gosh, I have 2 multi-level marketing businesses. Oh my gosh, talk about scattering yourself in too many directions. So I had to really decide, sort of like how we decided with our friends who's going to get attention. I had to decide with my businesses and my projects and my friends and family where I was going to take that energy. So what we can do to help here is check out these journal prompts. Which 3 areas of my life bring me the most joy or fulfillment? This is the key to everything. Joy and fulfillment, blissing out, having some epic feel-good feeling is when we know that our energy is all lit up, that it's ready to be set on fire. Things that are dragging us down are never going to take us there. So find those 3 areas of your life that are bringing you the most fulfillment. Number 2, where am I overcommitted or distracted? Self-explanatory. Just ditch some of that. How can I simplify my schedule to spotlight what really matters? That's number 3. How can I simplify my schedule to spotlight what really matters? Again, what really matters is your joy and fulfillment. So get rid of those other things that are distracting you. Some action items are prioritize your passions, make a list of current commitments and cross off what no longer serves you. And then this is an old standard and many of you already know this. None of us probably use it. I don't know. If you use it, please drop me a note and let me know if you're using it. I'm going to be using it with my podcast because I think once I get in the groove of something, it's really easy for me to knock it out. And it is time blocking. We're suggesting dedicating specific times to focus on one main goal or project. So actually putting it in your calendar. Like I've had to put in first of all, I have to admit, I was a special events coordinator for 25 years and worked hundreds of events a month, cleaning up the ones from the month before, setting the ones for months out, doing the ones that were happening in the moment. And I worked off of a calendar. And I'll tell you right now, since I left working for a company and doing that full time, I very rarely use my calendar. I look at my calendar to make sure I know my flight schedule, and the rest of my life is just sort of like willy-nilly. And I really had to rein that in this year. Time blocking has been a big part of that. So actually sitting down, I'll admit I'm super slow to start. So when I block 2 hours, that means my first hour I'm not focused, and my second hour I have to switch from sipping tea to sipping mushroom coffee to get my brain to focus. Any of you sip the mushroom coffee? I love it. So time blocking, it's just dedicating specific times to focus on your one goal or your project. Even for me, I have to put my workouts in the calendar, and then I have to put my times where I want to write in the calendar and my times when I want to record, right? So what is it that you need to time block? And what the time blocking does for people who love their freedom like I do, I mean, freedom is definitely the word I use for my life and my style in this lifetime. For people who love freedom, calendars and time blocking and checking boxes on lists is really, I don't know how to say it. It's just really frustrating. It's not appealing in any way, shape, or form. But what I see now is that when I time block, I can see the gaps where I have time for all that freedom, where I have time to walk on the beach and to meditate and to just sort of space out and be with my friends and dance and do all the things that I love to do, swim in the ocean. And just let life emerge, right? So once I'm done with my time blocking tasks, I have that freedom to go wild. All right. So we're going to really quick talk about Grandma Gloria. That's my step grandmother that we talked about. She lived this huge life of faith, service, and gratitude. And she, to me, was always very formal. When we would go to her house for a holiday, she was very formal. When we would be at a big birthday party for her, there would be a bunch of Norbertine priests at the party with us. She spent a lot of her time, almost every day she went to church. She spent a lot of her time in prayer. She was also a huge service to our community. She helped to build the Catholic high school in our area, and she sat on the board of a brand new bank. She helped run the family shipyard that is this year 120 years old. She was a real powerhouse. She was really serious. She, like I said, raised 5 kids, but when I think of her, I always think of this super sharp, really wise businesswoman. And I did really love that about her. I didn't need the warm and fuzzy from her because I was getting that from my grandma Pansy. So it was really easy to sort of receive what she gave when she gave it. And I'm really thankful for that. Because of this life of service she had, what I found most interesting about her was I guess you could call it karmic energy, but really how she radiated at this higher level that was so connected to God and her faith. And because of that, she also gave a lot, right? She gave to create all these things to help in our community, and she received tenfold. I can't tell you how many times we would go to a fundraiser and she would win the grand prize. Once she won a fur coat, she would win the trip. She would whatever it was, whatever she was giving was always coming back to her. And I love this lesson of reciprocity that landed in my lap from her. So her actions definitely spoke louder than her words. Like I said, she wasn't really warm and fuzzy, but her actions always exemplified how amazing she was. So for our journal prompts on this one, how about this? What does living in faith mean to me, and how might I embrace it, whether it's religious or otherwise? I'll admit I am not deeply religious traditionally, but I am deeply connected to God and spirit. And I love to hear about what other people believe. I've traveled all over. I've spent time with Hindus. I've spent time with Buddha, not Buddha himself, but the Buddhists in Buddhist cultures. Of course, I grew up in this Catholic environment. We also have Methodists and Presbyterians, and I was really fortunate to have some beautiful Jewish people in my life that took me to temple and showed me their faith. So that first one was, what does living in faith mean to me, and how do I embrace it? Number 2, where can I be of service to my community or those in need? So awesome, right? Where can I be of service in my community or those in need? This doesn't mean that you have to go out and volunteer every day. This means that you see someone on the street and you feel in your gut that you can help them in some way. This means maybe sometimes for me, it just means that one of my siblings needs a babysitter. They need a break. Sometimes it means that I take the dog that lives next door for a walk so that their owner can have a break. Sometimes it means something bigger than that, like actually donating one of my yoga classes. We have Girls Inc. here in town, or to a school. So there's lots of different ways to serve. Number 3, how does gratitude factor into my daily routine and how can I deepen that practice? Like I said, my grandmother was very clear about her faith and her gratitude for being alive and being connected. And I think this is really important. Gratitude has saved the day for me so many times. When you feel a downward spiral happening and you catch yourself on that tangent of playing the victim or a woe is me or nothing's going right, that's energy too. And a really quick way to kick ourselves out of that is to get into a gratitude practice. So just answering that question, how does gratitude factor into my daily routine and how can I deepen that practice? So some action items that you can grab onto: commit to just one act of community service, volunteer work, or like I said, just something for someone else. It can be anything, whatever you're called to. And then a daily gratitude ritual. Just add a daily gratitude ritual into your waking or going to sleep. I like it in a journal, but sometimes it's just when I lay down in bed, I tell myself, what are 3 things I'm grateful for today? And when I wake up, I say the same thing. What are 3 things I'm grateful for today? So pretty easy, right? It just reinforces our trust in life's blessings and brings more blessings to us. All right. And last but not least, I've got this awesome Grandma Marge's wisdom. So like I said, Grandma Marge was my dad's mom. So my birth father. Grandma Marge was the one that's really young and really feisty and kind of was wild. And she had this great rebellious edge. And like I said, she ended up the last many years of her life sliding into Alzheimer's. And there were times when she was gone, but there were lots of times when she was well aware of what was going on. So I can't even begin to express what a blessing it was to be with her, how many funny moments there were. I know there were times when she was frustrated. I was frustrated. She was living with my aunt. She was frustrated. But there were also so many times where I got to dance with her and I got to have great conversations with her. And this is a conversation I had with her one day that was getting kind of close to the end of her life. And I said to her, Gram, what kind of advice would you give me? What would you give me to go on in this life? And she sat for a moment quietly and she really thought about it. And she had a little trouble speaking at this time, but she said, she just quietly said, just be nice. And I said, that's it? Is there anything else? And she said, well, you just have to treat people right. You have to just be nice. And then she took another beat and I sat and I waited. A lot of times I would sit and wait to see if something else was going to come. And then she looked at me and she pounded her fists on the table and she got really assertive and really actually aggressive. And she said, be nice. And just don't be an asshole. It killed me. I laughed so hard. She was so serious. And that was so truly her. We're talking about authenticity all the time. And I was actually really surprised when she said nice because it felt really inauthentic. It felt like somewhere in her, she was trying to answer the right way, someone very wise and old, like something they would say to their granddaughter. But really, the truest, most authentic advice was when it came out, just don't be an asshole. So the journal prompts on this are, who is someone I can show extra kindness to today? Like I said, with my grandmother, it was so easy for me to show that kindness to her, even when she was really challenged and frustrated and not in her best self. It was really important to me to show extra kindness. I do that all the time too in my flight attendant job. We just never know, right? This is so cliche, but we never know what someone else is going through. We are not in their shoes. We have no idea what's happening. We have no idea who they've lost, what they've lost, how they've been hurt, how they've been triggered. And it really, if we're in a good place and we're solid in ourselves, we should have no issue showing some extra kindness to people. So prompt number 2, how do I respond when patience is tested and how can I improve? Okay, well, I'm not going to say I'm an angel in this place, especially when it comes to the people closest to me. I do have a little lack of, a little intolerance when it comes to patience in certain things. Other areas I have a huge amount, but I'm constantly looking to improve this and mostly looking at myself and asking myself, where can you take a beat? Where can you find that pause between the information that's coming at me and the response back? There's a beat, there's a pause in there where we can just take in a breath. I love breathing. I'm a yoga instructor. Take a breath and just really think, how do I need to respond to this? Journal prompt number 3, where can I blend honesty with kindness in setting boundaries? So again, just blending that honesty my grandmother had and that sweetness that she was trying to offer her granddaughter, but also setting some boundaries. So I love these action items. We're just going to perform a random act of kindness each day. It's so easy. It can be so teeny, tiny, a random act of kindness. It could be opening a door for someone. Tiny, does not matter. Just think, what would I like from someone? How would I like to be honored? And then give it back. All right. And then my favorite, put a sticky note somewhere. Maybe you need them all over your house. Maybe you need them all over your car. Maybe you need them all over your office. Write on this sticky note, just don't be an asshole. Somewhere visible, keep your humor and kindness at the top of your mind. All right. So those are the wisdoms from my grandmother. Just bringing it all together. My grandmother Pansy's idea of taking action and releasing toxicity and focusing priorities. And then my Grandma Gloria's living in faith and service. And my Grandma Marge's balancing kindness with directness. One of the weekly rituals that I would suggest is picking a Tea Tuesday or a similar day or sometime you can revisit these prompts and stay accountable with these actions. Find that friend that can help you out along the way. We're all in this together. That's the biggest part of growing into this next season of our life. I want to thank all of you for starting 2025 with me and for taking in these teachings from my grandmas that are age-old life wisdoms. Please, I encourage you to share those journal reflections or breakthroughs on social media with me. My social links are in the show notes. You can check me out on my website at lisaschoenthal.com. And I just want to give, again, a final nod to the wisdom of our elders, to the wisdom of our children that are in our lives. We're all in this together. Everyone is just as beautiful and important as the next. We gain our growth when we collaborate and connect and co-create with each other. Wishing you all a transformative, joy-filled, and deeply meaningful new year, lived in alignment with these timeless pearls of wisdom. Enjoy your thoughts, take time for yourself, and go ahead and sip that tea. Until next week, when we come back with something new, Happy New Year. I look forward to seeing you in 2025, to sipping tea and having the most transformative, empowering, and authentic year yet. Thanks so much for listening and following Sip Tea with me. It's so important that you embrace your passion and purpose so that you can have a massive impact and take necessary action to change the world. This time with you means so much to me because it allows me to honor and serve my life purpose of inspiring, empowering, and awakening the hearts and minds of you, the next gen, because you are our future. Remember, I'm here to help. I see you. I believe in your ability to make the world a better place. Make sure you hit that follow button, invite a friend, and tune in again next week, fam, as we continue to transform, evolve, and awaken authenticity together. Until then, much love from Auntie Lise.